my street, my boulevard. It's right up my Straza. Oh my God, it's garden right up there. Ah, it's right up my podcast.
Oh. Welcome to Right Up My Podcast. My name's Gwen Watson.
And my name's Kate White.
And this is the podcast in which we talk to clever, interesting, fabulous human beings about the wonderful ways they have to make us feel good.
We do indeed. And this episode, we are talking to Anna Anderson, who is the author of the best-selling book, From the Inside Out. She coaches women to break free from the outdated rules of diet culture. But we will come back and talk about that a little bit more in a minute.
I'm feeling this down to my bones, Kate.
To your very core.
Yes. And I will say this afterwards in our try it out section, but my cousin Kim bought me the book From the Inside Out, and as soon as I finished it, I just went straight back to the beginning and started reading it again.
Well, that is the ultimate sell, isn't it, basically? If a book grabs you that much, you're like, right. And actually, often books like that, when you read it the second time, you see so many things that you didn't pick up on the first time round.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, we're jumping ahead. Yeah. We're jumping ahead.
You've got all that to look forward to. What have you been doing to make yourself feel good?
What have I been doing to make myself feel good? So I've got a positive and a negative that I wanted to bring up today. So the positive, our Patreon Rump Club members will know that Gwen and I talked about the various things that we were getting up to. And one was that I was going to the carols at Bristol Cathedral. And it was so beautiful and it was so dreamy. And the music was just sort of soaring into the eaves of the cathedral. And, you know, when you get that lump in your throat because it's so emotional.
Yes.
But then the one, like the flip side of it, they had a voice actor from The Archers who came and did dramatic readings between kind of every other song, which started off quite short, succinct, and then just sort of descended into strange territory to the point where he did a really long reading with all of the different characters voiced out from Bridget Jones's Diary. Which at first I was like, okay, I get what you're doing. You know, Christmas, come one, come all. But after about 25 minutes of Bridget Jones's Diary being acted out dramatically from the pulpit, we were all like thinking, oh my God, stop the madness. It went into weird territory.
Was it really for that long? Because when you said that, him doing all the characters and Bridget Jones, I mean, it's very Christmassy, isn't it?
It's quite
Christmassy. Because we are 1 week out from Christmas now. And that sounds exciting and fun. But was he just the guest at the party who stayed too long?
Yeah, he was the guest that you get a bit cornered with, and they keep telling you the really interesting story with all of the details, and you just want to go and have a mulled wine. He was that guy. Our plan had been that we were going to go out afterwards. When it got to the end of that, we were all like, oh man, I just need to go home now. I'm done. No. I need to go to bed. It sapped all of my festive cheer out of me.
Oh no. Which bit of Bridget Jones's Diary did you do?
The party where she first meets Darcy, and before the party, the lead up to it, there's a long...
Oh, she's wearing the Christmas jumper.
She's wearing the Christmas jumper. There's a long toing and froing between her and her mum, where her mum wants to buy her a travel suitcase. There was a lot of...
Right.
Yeah. It just didn't. Yeah, it was too much.
Not.
No, It was too much. It was too much.
That is hilarious.
Anyone listening to this who is in Bristol and went, if you loved the Bridget Jones's Diary reading, then, you know, I hold my hands up. Apologies if I've just ruined it. Let us know.
Right on my podcast at gmail.com. We want to hear from you. I love this story.
What about you? What have you been doing to make yourself sort of feel good? Maybe
feel good with a tinge of want to run away. Well, I put on, as our Rump Clubbers will also know, I put on a 90s night on Friday night at a local venue, and it's been a long time in the making, and it was so much fun.
Yes.
All the 90s classics. We were talking about this, weren't we, last episode?
Yes.
And there was a lot of dancing and a lot of seeing old faces.
Oh, that's nice.
And a lot of singing along. Singing along to the old tunes.
Yeah.
And I have been slightly broken ever since.
To be expected.
Yes. I mean, this body cannot handle 5 tequilas and a few beers anymore.
is a temple.
Yeah, that we're nourishing, that we're about to learn how to nourish. I poisoned it once again.
Oh, whoops. I've done it again.
Oh, well. So I've had a good time dancing, a bit like yours, yeah. There's been good times with the dancing this weekend, but also tinged with a bit of poisoning oneself.
Yeah, just to take the edge off.
The highs and the lows.
The highs and the lows. So my low wasn't actually Bridget Jones's diary. I mean, to be honest with you, that was quite funny. My low was... There's more. Brace yourself, people, for this cheery, festive podcast.
Oh, yeah, it's our last one before Christmas
I
as
know.
well, isn't
Merry
it?
Christmas. Ho, ho, ho. And on that note, I don't know whether we should include this next story, but let's chat about it anyway, because I'd be interested to see what your take on this is.
OK, let's see if this makes it into the final cut.
Yeah, I was waiting to catch the ferry. There's like a taxi boat that takes you across the harbour side from one side to another in Bristol. And I was waiting to catch it. It was on that really cold day, ice on the water, really beautiful, gorgeous. Anyway, the ferry driver had buggered off. I don't know where he'd gone, so I stood there for about 20 minutes. But there was 2 guys and a girl stood on the harbour side, just on the jetty, hanging out. And one of the guys was being really verbally abusive to the girl. Horrible, just really being really abusive to her. And to the point where you're like, so I went to sort of stand a bit closer to them because I was sort of slightly worried about her well-being. Yeah. And then they were distracted. They were rolling a cigarette or something. And I kind of I looked over and she happened to look over and I kind of caught her eye and I just sort of gave her a thumbs up and mouthed, "Are you all right?" And she nodded. She was like, "Yeah, I am." And I was like, "Are you sure you're all right?" And she was like, yeah, I'm okay. But I didn't, she said she was all right, but that doesn't necessarily mean she was. I didn't feel good about the whole thing that was going on. And then actually they carried on arguing and then she stormed off. I don't know where she went. So I felt a bit more... I felt like her imminent safety wasn't quite at risk in the same way, because he was threatening to push her in the water and all sorts. The water was covered in ice and everything. And then the ferry did arrive and I was like, I don't know what to do. So I got on the ferry and went, and then, I was out of the moment. But I'm just interested to know, there's so much stuff, isn't there, in the media, and rightly so, that we've got to look out for each other. And I wanted to look out for her because I could see that she was in a horrible situation. But if she had said to me, "No, I'm not all right, I'm scared, this is bad," I don't know what I would have done. Because if she had been kind of in the street being harassed, I could have probably intercepted in a sort of non-confrontational way, like, "Oh, hi," pretend I knew her and taken her away from that space or diluted the moment. But I couldn't have done that in that moment because it was a different setup. They were stationary and standing there and they all knew each other and they were arguing and there was no one else around. And I don't know what I would have done, but I felt like I wanted to show some solidarity and check she was okay.
Yes. That is a really tricky one, because do you then interrupt their little gang and say, "Oh, hi, love, do you mind just coming over here so I can have a chat with you?"
Yeah.
And wielding her off.
Yes.
Or, because you can't confront him.
Well, no.
That would be dangerous for yourself as well. You could both end up in the icy waters.
I know. 2 of them. And...
of the Avon. No.
Blimey, yeah.
Yeah, that is a tricky one. But well done for saying something. And and knowing that, of letting her know that she was not alone in that moment and she was supported.
I guess that's what I wanted to do. I guess I kind of knew that I probably couldn't do much if she was like, "No, this is horrible."
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like now by saying this story, I've just told it for you so that you can say, "Bravo, Kate."
Well done, Kate.
You socially minded individual. But I was more that I was just interested to know if you had heard of scenarios where people are like, "Okay, here's a really great toolkit for what you can do when you want to step in and diffuse a situation." But clearly not.
No, but all I can think of was when I was younger, when I first went to London, I used to talk to everybody on the tube. Like, if people talked to me, I would talk back to them.
Yeah.
I remember in one...
all the crazies.
I know, I was so innocent. And I remember one time, this woman who'd basically... ended up being my best mate on the tube, and I remember people having to kind of stand in, step in to help me. At one point, I'm down the one end of the tube station, she's up the other end on the platform yelling, "Gwendolyn!"
Oh God!
I was like, oh, dear me, how have I got myself in this situation? But I remember one of those people on the train, because this woman was just sitting right by me and blah blah blah, and this woman just on the other side of the carriage and further down, she just looked at me. She's like, "Are you okay?" And she just beckoned me over to her.
Oh, right.
And I went and stood with her.
Yeah.
So it enabled me to get up, walk away from the situation and go and stand with this other woman, which made me feel safer.
Yes.
So that was actually a really nice and easy thing for that woman to do.
Yes, yeah.
And somebody at the end of that journey said, "You just got to not talk back. You don't have to talk to everybody on the tube.
Just don't make eye contact with anybody you don't know."
They're like, "You're new here, aren't you?"
Life lessons.
But yeah, I guess it was just knowing that I wasn't alone.
Yeah.
The action around me wasn't being ignored, and that somebody was actually saying, "Look, come over here and I'll help you."
Yeah.
So that's what you were doing for her.
Yeah, and maybe it sort of diffuses the situation a little bit.
Yeah.
I feel like
Well done, Kate.
I feel like I need to lighten the tone now and ask you, what have you been watching on telly, Gwen?
What a smooth segue.
Ooh.
Yes. Well, okay. I'm glad you've asked me this. Because I've developed a little bit of a crush.
Oh,
and
tell me more.
I have a feeling that you might know what I'm talking about.
Share with the world.
I have just watched. I went to stay with a friend weekend before last, and we binged. In fact, during those first few days, we binged the first and second series of Upright, written and starred by
Say his name.
Tim Minchin.
Oh my God. I bloody love Tim Minchin. I'm so happy that you've brought him into my mind's eye. He's amazing.
I've always kind of admired him, I guess. I know that he's a talented fellow. I know that he's been involved with Matilda. He was involved with Matilda, the stage play, wasn't he? And now the movie as well.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I got that right.
That's right.
And writing the music. I know he's very talented, but I tell you what, he's also a little bit sexy.
A little bit sexual.
And Upright is so good. Have you seen Upright?
No, I remember when it first came out and I really wanted to watch it, but I didn't have the right channel. What was it on that you watched it?
So, yes, this is the thing. It's on Sky, which most of us, I kind of feel, don't have. Most of us who have Netflix and occasional Prime and etc. But my friends had Now TV, so you can watch it on Now TV.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. So, basically, it's set in Australia, which is another reason why I love it, because I spent like a quarter of my life in Australia, and it just gives me real nostalgias. And it's on the west coast of Australia. Oh, no, in fact, they're going up, west coast and through central Australia. Yeah. And he is taking an upright piano, hence the title, the eponymous upright piano, to across Australia, I think from Sydney to Perth, to go and see his dying mother. During this journey, he literally crashes into a young chick who is kind of on the run from life, and they buddy up in an unlikely kind of buddy movie, because she's a teenager and he's a grown-ass adult male. And it's the friendship that comes out of that. Yes. It's the adventures in the outback. It's everything in between. It's brilliant.
That sounds so good. And is there lots of tinkling the ivory moments with said upright piano?
There's a few, not loads, but there are a few. Yeah. So you get to see his talents as well.
He's so talented.
He's a bit of a genius child, isn't he? Yeah.
Because I remember seeing him do stand-up once, and most of his stand-up set is him singing really satirical, political, very, very funny songs while he plays the piano.
Right,
and he's so clever and so astute and so funny. And now, apparently, an amazing actor as well. Is there anything this man can't do?
Is there anything?
Come on,
I know. Tim. Well, unlike Harry Styles, he is an all-rounder.
He's delivering on all fronts.
Who we mentioned in last week's episode. So, I highly recommend it. Upright, Season 2 has just dropped. And also, he's got a new film out. It's him doing stand-up, and exactly as you're saying, doing stand-up, playing piano, etc. It's called Back.
Okay. Oh, yeah,
It's filmed live
that.
at the Shepherd's Bush Empire. That critics have called...
what are the critics called it, Gwen? I need to know.
Spectacular and a roof-raising return. So there you go. There's plenty of ways to embrace Tim Minchin. What else? What have you been watching, Kate?
So I've recently really got into a drama series on the BBC, good old BBC, called Tokyo Vice. Have you heard of this?
No, yes, I have. It's got the dude from Baby Driver in it.
Dude from Baby Driver.
Yeah.
It's really good. I love it. It's good for so many reasons. It's really well written, so it just keeps you kind of what's going to happen next. But also, I just love the setting. It's in Tokyo, and it's not in the kind of the usual visual of Tokyo that you often see in films. The great big zebra crossings with 2,000 people all crossing at once, and it's in more the kind of local Tokyo. So you're seeing the back streets and the clubs and the little eateries and just life for a local person living in Tokyo. So the concept is the Baby Driver character. He's an American. He went over to Tokyo to study Japanese literature for his degree, and he's just stayed there. And he's now working. He's got a job, the first American, the first non-Japanese national ever to get a job at the main big newspaper in Tokyo, which is one of the biggest newspapers in the world, and he's working on the crime desk. But it's really amazing because the actor, but I would say about 80% of the show, he's speaking in Japanese, which is incredible.
Wow.
Yeah, it's incredible. And then they slip into English every now and then, depending on who he's having conversations with. But it's definitely...
That's really impressive.
It's really impressive. And yeah, I'm really hooked. I'm really enjoying it.
What's it called again? Tokyo Vice?
Tokyo Vice.
Oh, yeah, what's his name?
Oh, and I forgot to say, it's all to do with the Yakuza, so basically the Japanese mafia.
All right, excellent.
Yeah.
I love a good recommendation. Ansel Elgort, that's his name from Baby Driver. He was also in West Side Story recently.
Was, yes. Yeah. Ansel Elgort.
Little baby face, what a gorge.
What a gorge, what a name.
Yeah. What a name.
What a name, Ansel Elgort. I mean, is that his stage name, or is he actually...
That's
his name.
Born and bred. Yeah, I think you're mocking his European... oh, no, he's American. Where's that name come from then, Ansel Elgort?
Well, he could have European heritage, couldn't he? His parents, yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. I probably shouldn't mock. There's probably some sort of casual racism I've thrown into the mix there without realising
Exactly.
it.
There's some very unhappy Dutch people listening to you going, how dare you!
The Elgorts
from
are
the
alive.
Elgort family.
Not sure we can use any of that.
It's all going in.
It's right up my podcast.
Now, before we get started, we'd just like to remind you about our Patreon.
This is where we put all our episode extras for free, and for the price of a cup of coffee a month, you can join the very exclusive Rump Club.
Yes, as a member, you will get access to extra Wiffle Waffle from Kate and I, behind-the-scenes content, music and lyrics from our incredible jingles, and we're even going to put some bonus episodes up there too.
The funds from Patreon go towards covering our running costs, as well as earning our unending love and gratitude.
So if you'd like to become one of our supporters and join the Rump Club, head on over to patreon.com/writeupmypodcast. Thank you. This is episode 35, all about saying no to dieting.
This episode, we are talking to Anna Anderson, and she is the author of the best-selling book From the Inside Out. Anna is a health and female empowerment coach, and she helps women learn what it means to nourish their minds and body and to break free from the outdated rules of diet culture. So we started our chat with Anna by asking her to tell us a little bit about why she decided to write her book in the first place.
Well, I wrote From the Inside Out about a year ago, based on my experiences over the last 10 to 12 years through the journey of dieting and body hatred. And, I look at my life is kind of is split into sections. And so the first third, I would say, was pretty hard. I based a lot of my self-worth on things outside of myself. And I think actually, as a mum and doing the work I do now, that's kind of what we're taught to do. How do we validate ourselves? And it tends to be externally. So through body image, especially as women, through, our dress size, through the number on the scales, how much we earn, the job we do, all of these things. And I was really low. So I was ticking all the external boxes. I'd gone to uni, I'd, got a good job in the city, and I was miserable. I was numbing, I was using alcohol, I was drinking a lot. I'd actually started drinking from a very young age, partying and trying to find some sense of joy. But if I'm really honest, I didn't have a relationship with myself, but I also didn't know that there was anything different to feel. I just thought, well, this is kind of what it is. But I was really deeply on the inside, insecure, imposter syndrome, not feeling good enough, comparing myself to everybody, thinking everybody must have something better than me. And then what happened was when I was 28, I fell pregnant, but I was single. So all of the coping mechanisms that I had were not going to work anymore. And the rug was well and truly taken out from underneath my feet. And at the time I lived in a shared house. I'd never lived on my own. None of my friends had kids. I was working in the city. And so it was so tough. It was so hard. And I didn't have a good relationship with his dad, and that put so much extra pressure on me. And so I moved out of London when Isaac was 1. And I wanted to bring him up somewhere where I just felt as a single mum I wouldn't be able to do the best that I could do in the city. You know, you kind of live next to your neighbours and you never speak to them. And I loved London, but that was my different life. And so I moved out to Surrey, as loads of people do when they have kids. And after 4 years, when he was about to go to school, I was broken. I was still numbing. So when he was with his dad, I wasn't dealing with the pain. I wasn't dealing with his absence well. I wasn't dealing with any of it very well. And after one particularly difficult time, he'd gone to his dad's at 10:30 in the morning, and I just sank to the floor and I drank a bottle of gin. Something inside of me said, you've got a choice now. You can carry on like this and not be the mother that you want to be and that he deserves, and you can really keep going down this route, or you can find something else. And my work was killing me. Like I used to love my job, but I'd fallen out of love with my job because I just didn't have the capacity for it all anymore. I was a single mum. He wasn't sleeping. I was numbing with anything that I could numb. I didn't have any joy in my life. I was really, really, really struggling. And I was commuting now as well. Yeah. So I was traveling in and out of London an hour and a half each way. And at the beginning, I wanted to commute with him because I wanted him near me. And then he went to nursery here. So I was just flying around, trying to keep it all okay. And also, I was the only breadwinner. So I'm like, I can't lose this job that's that thing that is keeping us alive and paying the mortgage, and my only final piece of identity. Like, at least you've got a good job. At least you've got that. And so I had this inner turmoil. I remember thinking, I was saying to a client the other day, I really wish that I'd get hit by a car, because at least then I could have some time off. You know, like if I broke a leg or if I hurt myself, at least I'd be able to have some time off and it would be okay. How bad is that? Like, I was not okay. So that bottle of gin at 10:30 in the morning, I just sunk to the floor, and this voice inside of me said, you've got to do something different. But I didn't know. I didn't think I had any other skills. I didn't know what I could do. And I just thought, you know, not that there's anything wrong with it, but I didn't want to be a single mum working in the supermarket. Like, I'm sure I can do something else, but I didn't know what else I could do. And I just Googled, with a massive hangover, jobs for mums, because I thought the one thing I've got to do is give up my job, because that I want to at least be able. He was just about to start school, and I wanted to pick him up and drop him off, because otherwise I was going to pay someone to do that, and that just. So, you know, my priorities really pushed me, and my values, which was to be with him. And this job came up that said yoga franchise for mums. And I was like, totally unfit, so out of shape, using alcohol, got out of breath when I ran up the stairs, never done yoga before, or very little, and I just like, I'll buy that. So I put $8,000 on a credit card. I wasn't a yoga teacher. I had no idea how to run a business. I didn't know what I was doing. When I look back, I'm like, you are absolutely berserk. You're mental. I think everyone around me thought that too. You know, like, what are you going to do? How are you going to pay the mortgage? But when your back is against the wall and you have to feed your child and you need to be able to support them and pay for your mortgage on your own, I just found something within me and I made it work. And I built a yoga business in my local area. But the thing that saved me was yoga. Right. Because eventually I found this inner wisdom within inside of me where I could learn to love myself. And I realized that all of the external things that I was trying to prove myself through were not what it was going to be. And I actually started to make space in my life and silence and quiet to have reflection, to heal and to process.
God, and, I know, I feel...
Sorry, I'm going on and on.
No, not at all. I feel quite emotional.
So that's like the beginning of the book.
Yeah, I feel quite emotional hearing that. I mean, thank you for, I mean, I know it's in the book, but thank you for talking us through that, because, God, that's really tough time that you went through by the sounds of things.
Yeah. And I think really will resonate for so many people.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Definitely.
so many of us, when we become mums, or, we're just doing a job we don't want to do, or we think we should be doing this certain kind of job, and actually we don't want to do it. And
or just feeling trapped in a lifestyle that's not serving you or making you happy or anyone around you happy.
Exactly. I think, I don't want to put percentages on it, but it's really common, right? We get ourselves into a place where financially we've got the home and we've got the things, and we think that they were going to bring us joy, and then we reach a point in our life and we're like, this isn't what's bringing me joy, and I don't know what is.
Yeah.
And it's so scary to take that leap, like, out of the rat race into, I'm going to try this.
Yeah.
And so that's what my book is about. And as I learned to love myself and take care of myself, I wanted to stop drinking, and I wanted to stop harming, and I wanted to stop dieting, and I wanted to stop doing all the things that hurt me, and I just wanted to be well, and I wanted to feel good. And then I went to therapy, and coaching and EFT and all the things, and got trained in all the things. And then my book is the back of my story and what we can do instead of dieting, because now I work with women who are so stuck on their body image, and they think that that's what it is. It's like, if I lose this, then at least then I'll be happy. And it's like, that isn't it. That isn't it at all. There's something deep inside of you that's hungry for something else. And we've been taught by society to focus on body image or whatever it is, and put our worth in that. And that is not it,
Do you know, that's something that really resonated for me with your book, was that kind of putting life on hold until, and that especially, and so many women you speak to, so many of my friends, it's like, oh, when I lose half a stone, then I'll go do this, or then I'll go do that. And for me, it's dating. It's like, I don't want to go on an app, or I don't want to go out on a date until I've lost half a stone, or until I do. And it's so damaging, isn't it? And it's just, so basically the core of your book is all about, it's not about what we look like. It's not about what size we are, or what, and it's certainly not about restricting ourselves with diets, but it's about loving ourselves, isn't it? That's basically it.
It's about loving ourselves and understanding that when we're doing something that brings us joy, when we've taken steps outside of our comfort zone, when we've been scared and we've done it anyway, and we've learned that actually we are good at other things and we can do different things, and we've faced our fears, then we start to take care of ourselves, and health comes and our vitality comes. It's not, so many of us, and I put a post out on Facebook actually last week about permission. Like, you have permission to do the thing. Stop waiting for your weight to be a certain size or a certain number to do the thing, because actually our ego is like the way that we keep ourselves safe. And so, maybe what we do is say, well, when I've lost weight, then I'll be able to do it. But actually, because we're not facing the thing that scares us the most, and the thing that scares us the most might be going out and dating, or might be going out and doing the thing that's actually really scary. So we say, oh, I'll just wait until I've lost weight. But then we live in this cycle, and our comfort zone gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And there's all this love out there for us, but we have to start with loving ourselves first and accepting ourselves.
So how do you do that? If you're someone listening to this and you're in the heart of that feeling like you don't love yourself, and you're stuck in this cycle of negative thought and decisions, how do you break out of that? Because we all know the buzzwords, don't we?
all know
yoga,
it,
meditation, but how do you actually change and make that first step?
That's a really good question, Kate, and it's many things. It's many, many things. And one of the first is being really painfully honest. What are we avoiding? What things do we actually want to do that we're saying we're going to put off and wait until we do them? And the other thing, and what I teach the most, is to learn that there are two voices inside of our heads. Okay, and there is one voice that is really unkind. She's really cruel. She says, why did you do that? Why did you say that? You're not as good as that. You're never going to be able to do that. Those voices that we all know.
She's loud, man.
So
she
loud.
is loud. Okay.
But there's another voice inside
She's
of
chatty.
us. There's a bit quieter sometimes if we haven't given her space. And so we have to slow down, because if we're busy and we're in reaction mode, the ego is always going to be the loudest. And the way to separate the ego, because a lot of people are like, how do I know the difference? The ego is always unkind, and your inner self is never going to be unkind. She'll be like, give it a go. Maybe you could, but the ego creates doubt. And the purpose of the ego is to stay small, to stay stuck in the stories so that we stay safe. And safe is kind of...
the ego is trying to protect us.
Trying to protect us in whatever way is possible, even if it makes us miserable, to keep doing the same thing. Because if we left a cave 10,000 years ago and said, I'm going to walk on the desert on my own, we would have died. We probably wouldn't have made it. So stay and do the same thing. But we're more evolved than that now, and we don't need to stay and do the same thing, and we don't need to be horrible to ourselves. And so, I always say it, and people kind of roll their eyes, but meditation is such a powerful thing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, this is top of my list of things I know I should do and I'm not doing.
It's so common. And people get stuck with meditation because they're like, but my head gets louder. Yeah. And so we have to learn the difference between, I always say, try and sink beneath the noises in your head rather than, don't try and shut your noises up, because they're not going to. Allow them and be okay with them being there. And so just coming into your heart space and feeling gratitude and feeling joy and feeling that we could have room for love for ourselves allows us to start to create a different response in our body. And so creating a different feeling in ourselves through the practice of gratitude is really, really, really important. And then the final thing is to go back and find that little girl inside of yourself and understand why she might be trying to keep you stuck, and to love her, to be, to do that inner child work and to build that relationship.
Say no to dieting, say no to diets. It's all about loving yourself and nourishing your body instead, your body instead.
I'd love to talk a bit more about inner child work, because this has come up a few times on different episodes. We've never actually properly looked at it, have we? And I like the idea. We were just chatting before we came on here, that kind of thinking back to like when I was younger and the things that really made me happy or that made me excited, and the things, I guess you're talking about the things that hold you back based on...
Yeah. The behaviours that we learn as children. The behaviours
that we learn, yeah. So between 0 and 7... they're our formative years. They kind of construct our mind and the way that we think. And so everything, if we think about from birth all the way through to 7, everything we're making meaning out of. And a child is really egoic, and what that means is they're making meaning out of every situation. So if something is going on around them, they're not going to think it's the caregivers or the school or that there's anything wrong with anything else, because they're trying to figure out how to survive. We make the meaning. So trauma is the meaning that we've made from a situation, not the trauma itself. And so it can be feeling embarrassed or ashamed in the classroom, and our subconscious remembers that. So if it says, oh, I felt really embarrassed, the teacher really embarrassed me, I don't feel good enough, that becomes a core belief. I don't feel good enough. And then we're running this cycle in our mind around and around and around, without us even knowing, because the subconscious's job is to stay stuck in that cycle so that you don't have to think about it. It wants you to keep safe so that you can go off and do other things. So we're running this constant dialogue of limiting belief that says, you're not good enough, or whatever it might be. And so we have to go back and find that little girl and go in, and we can do that using NLP. We can do that using EFT, which is emotional freedom technique. I don't know if you both know that, tapping.
We've as episode 5 for our listeners there.
Heard that
if
one.
you've not listened to it, episode 5, go back. Brad Yates, we had Brad Yates on.
Amazing, yeah. Who we love.
Really good. It's so powerful. It's such a powerful thing.
It is,
and you can
isn't it?
change your beliefs. Yeah, it's amazing. So yeah, you can go back and change. You can find where they came from and build a new relationship. And we can self-parent.
Yeah.
Oh, sweetheart, it's okay. I know that you're feeling like you're not good enough, but you are. And you can do this. How we would talk to children, we can talk to ourselves in that way.
Now, you spoke about your relationship with alcohol and how that was a tool for numbing the, great level of stress that you had going on in your life. A lot of the focus, obviously, from your book is about eating. So why do we overeat?
Yeah, it's the same.
Is it for similar reasons? Where's that come from?
Any numbing. It's any form of numbing. So food brings massive comfort. So all of the subconscious cycles that we're running without knowing that we're running, if we're thinking constantly at some level within us, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I don't love myself, look at my body, it's a brilliant way of the ego looks for the best ways to find for us to keep those limiting beliefs alive. So for women, body image is a really, really good one. We've had it ingrained into us that we're not good enough or worthy until. And so food then becomes something that we feel is restricted or bad or we shouldn't have. And so we start to have this dialogue with food where we think that dieting and starving is the good thing. And I'm good when I do that. We say, oh, I've been good today. And then when we eat, we feel bad, and so we start to have this relationship with food where we're not allowed it. So I used to go and drive and buy all these things that I thought I wasn't allowed to have, and secret eat and hide the wrappers, and ultimately I was numbing the pain of feeling not worthy and not good enough and that I didn't love myself with things that I thought that I wasn't allowed to have. Food, alcohol, sex, shopping, whatever your thing is, all of them, they take the pain away for a bit, don't they?
Yeah.
And then we go down deeper. So it's anything that kind of busies the mind and takes it away from, I don't want to feel this discomfort, I don't want this discomfort. And the solution is always going into the discomfort and loving ourselves.
Yeah. And the diet industry has really tapped into that, hasn't it? I mean, it's quite a toxic world.
It's toxic. It really, really is. It's so dangerous. It's just such a damaging thing. I think there's this post going around at the moment that heroin chic is coming back in or something like that.
Yeah, I've seen
and
that.
It's unrealistic and it's dangerous. And I'm just, I really, really worry about young girls and women. But I work with, most of the women I work with are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, even 60s or 70s. And they've been put on diet since they were 8 years old. They're weighing themselves every day, and we've got.
I started at 15.
Yeah,
really.
Right. And we're taught that our worth is connected to our weight. I'm good enough when, and we're always good enough. We can always grow, we can always learn, we can always evolve. But a woman's body changes. And if we can learn, I always practice. I'm gonna put your hands on your heart for a minute, and close your eyes, and just imagine that your body is a woman. Imagine that she's a her. And think about how kind she is every single day, doing millions, even trillions of small exchanges within the cells, the 50 trillion cells that make you who you are. And every day she is doing things all day to take care of you, whatever we pour into her, whatever we say to her, however much we are cruel to her. And just think if she was a she, what she'd be feeling like. And she still shows up for you. She still shows up for you. And there's this beautiful Hawaiian prayer that I love called the Ho'oponopono. I don't know if you've both heard of it. No. But if you just say it with me to your body, and it's, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you.
That's really beautiful.
Really beautiful, isn't it? And if we could start to have that kind of acceptance and kindness and love for ourselves, then actually, we want to nourish that amazing body that we live in. And it's not about our image, it's about our health. And that's the way forward.
There's a big difference,
Massive
Gosh, that made me feel quite emotional doing that. That kind of act of almost looking at my body from a third person perspective, like looking in from the outside.
Yeah, rather than looking at it as yourself and just another thing to feel bad about.
Yeah.
It's like, look at how amazing this body is.
It's amazing.
So amazing.
And the things that we put it through. I totally poisoned this poor body last weekend to the point where it couldn't eat and had to lie down for an entire day in the dark. Like, the things we do.
The things we do. And she still shows up, right? She's still there.
Yes.
Yeah. And if we didn't have her, we wouldn't be here. So what an amazing, amazing thing that we have. It's priceless. And if we spoke like that to ourselves every day. Yeah. And the other thing that I always think about is the fact that what we focus on is what we create more of and what we grow. So when we focus on what's wrong, we focus on the problems with our body. None of us have, all of the images we see are doctored, aren't they? They're not real. Yeah. And so we all have wobbly bits or bits that maybe, we grow older or we change. But what if we could just love those, and what if we could focus on what is good and just feel the joy of that every day?
Because that is a hard one, isn't it? When you get to a certain stage in life and you do start to feel your body changing, and that sort of acceptance that that's what it's supposed to do, that it's natural for it to start changing and the different areas to be softer and other areas to be...
Totally. And I also think that that's part of the world that we live in, where we've been taught that the worth of a woman is in her youth, right? And actually women as they age are beautiful. And also we exchange, when we start to look at female archetypes and the stages of a woman's life as she moves through, children getting older into the enchantress, it's called the enchantress phase, as she starts to kind of perimenopause, postmenopause, kids getting older, and into her wild woman or her wisdom years, they're wise, and what if we could really value ourselves and be empowered rather than feeling that our worth is in that youthful young body image. I think that that's a really important thing for us to help realise, that it doesn't matter if we've got a wobbly bum or a bit of cellulite, or our boobs have got a bit saggy because we've fed our children, or whatever it is. Actually, we've got experience and we can be incredibly powerful women. It's not about our body.
I love the idea of moving into a wild woman phase. That sounds brilliant. Sign me up.
Yeah, and of being in the enchantress phase. That I'm so obsessed by aging, because especially when you've grown up and got validation from your looks and from others due to your looks, and as those change and your face changes and you see it aging and you see that you get less validation, it's painful, and you're constantly comparing yourselves to others, not only comparing yourselves to younger people, but comparing yourselves to how other women are changing, because other women have different genes to you. And this is like a constant for me. And it's, oh God, it's... And I would love to not have that. I would love to embrace being an enchantress instead. Like, that's so much more positive, isn't it?
Imagine if you woke up every day, with that. And that's what I do. Like, before I get out of bed, I have that chat with myself.
Because it's one thing to have one day where you wake up and like, oh, okay, no, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling strong today. But to sustain that day in, day out, that's a whole nother challenge.
It is, and it's discipline. And I talk about in my work a lot, discipline and how important it is when we are learning to love ourselves, because it's so easy. We're always going to have resistance. Remember that the ego loves us to stay stuck. So I don't teach yoga anymore, but I used to be a yoga teacher, and I still have resistance to getting on the mat. I'm like, oh, I don't want to. But I know that I'll feel better afterwards. And so it's that parenting, like, you're going to feel better when you do it. And so small amounts of time. I always say, just make it 5 minutes, make it 10 minutes, do 5 minutes of meditation, do 1 minute of meditation, get your mind believing that it can, and have the discipline, even when we don't want to, even when our mind's like, I'll just skip one day. No, I'm going to do it anyway, because I'm going to show up for myself. And it's hard work, but then we have to choose our hard, right? It's hard staying stuck, and it's hard being unkind to ourselves as well.
So choose your hard.
Yeah. Choose your hard. And what does love look like? Like, sometimes love is discipline, isn't it? Having those boundaries with ourselves. Actually, I stop at one glass, or I do this. I don't drink anymore at all. But finding our shifts in relationship and how we can serve ourselves and love ourselves. What's the most loving thing for me today? If we started asking ourselves those kinds of questions.
Oh, pomegranates, 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 they have lots of seeds. And yes, they feature, in the writings of classical Greece. You'll find them in Egypt, also India, oh yes, of course, India. And in Iran. I get mine in Sainsbury's.
And then, so the idea is, with regards to dieting, because I've had this conversation, and as I started reading your book, my cousin Kim, shout out to cousin Kim, sent me this from the inside out, and And I was having a conversation with a friend. We're in a little group where we're the whale watchers, and we weigh in every week, and we were doing that for a while until we all got bored, and we were saying, and I was saying, oh, you know what the idea is? We've got to love ourselves, and then we nourish what goes into our body. And then my friend's like, yes, we've got to do this. But I'm just thinking maybe we'll just do Slimming World for a couple of months just to shift that bit first. And it's really hard to get out of that
cycle.
Mentality.
Yeah.
And to because diets never work, right? We put it all back on.
Yeah.
I'm evidence of that. But it's really hard to take that leap from what you know.
Yeah.
And to kind of just trust that that we're going to just put in what's right for our body.
Yeah. It's a constant daily awareness, isn't it? And I think we've got to be super aware. I created an acronym called HEAL. It's in the book actually, and so it's asking yourself questions: Am I hungry? E, what emotion am I feeling right now? A, is there an alternative? What could be the most loving? L, what could be the most loving thing that I could do for myself right now? And starting to build that conscious awareness and relationship with ourselves, and know that the dieting industry says you've got to starve and restrict and create restriction. And that's never going to work, because that goes against the grain of our body, and our body releases this hormone called ghrelin, and I think of it like gremlin. I need to eat. I'm going to eat all of the sugary things. I'm going to eat white bread and white pasta and chocolate, because it's wanting sugar because you're starving. And so we then think it's about our willpower, and that I can't do this and I'm rubbish and all of those things, when actually, if after a couple of weeks we've been nourishing our bodies mostly, and I always say just 80% of the time, 5 days a week, eat healthy things mostly, your body's going to start to love that. Take small steps and do them daily, and you'll start to feel better, and it becomes your normal. And so when we eat lots of fibre, beans, legumes, pulses, then our blood sugar balances. And so many of the women I work with say, oh, my cravings have gone away. I've stood next to a chocolate cake at work, the dreaded work office, with all the things that people bring in. And I don't actually want it. I thought that it was about my inability to make decisions and stay strong, but actually my body was starving and I wasn't nourishing it properly. So after a few days of us giving our body what we need, actually we start to learn a new way, and then we can see that dieting was never a healthy thing to do. And these organisations want us to stay stuck. That's how they make their money, right?
Yeah. And the people who write their marketing material are clever. They tap into those things that they know are going to resonate with their target audience.
They really do. Yeah, I don't know which, is it Slimming World or I don't know all of these organisations well, but one of them uses the word sin, doesn't it, as a food that you've eaten wrong. It's like,
you're allowed a certain number of sins a day.
So we need to take away this good and bad concept with food, and just understand that when we feel good, our body wants us to be well, and she's an amazing body. She's looking after you all day, every day. So the more you put in that is good, the more you're going to feel better.
I love that.
Yes.
And I really do think that we've got to learn from the discomfort. Like when we're out of alignment with ourselves, and I talk about feeling good, being in alignment with ourselves, when we're out of alignment, stop judging it. That, it's okay. That recognizing being human means to be up and down. It's like, I don't feel good. That's okay. I'm not going to judge myself for any actions I've done or not done. I'm just going to say I'm not feeling good. But what it does is show us the difference between the two, right? So if we can use them both as a learning opportunity rather than one's good, one's bad, and say, actually when I do take action, I've learned from not taking action that when I do take action, I feel better. And just to start being a bit lighter with ourselves, and that it's okay to have these ups and downs. I have all of these tools and I do them, but we still have variance in how we feel, and that's normal, right? And some days we just want a day in bed, and that's okay. And giving ourselves permission to recognise that we need that.
That we need rest too.
I struggle with that giving myself that time for rest.
It is. We can be really, I remember when I started doing this work being really frightened of quiet time because I didn't know what it meant, also because I could hear my head then, right? So it's really, if we're busy, busyness is another technique of numbing, isn't it? So we're like, oh my gosh, I haven't got any plans, what am I going to do? And permission is really important as women, that we have permission to do nothing, to read all day or to not read and to lie all day, but recognizing things that are going to feel good. So, you know, one Netflix show will feel okay, all day we're going to start releasing those hormones where we don't feel good, but we've all done that as well, right? So just what are we going to do each day that serves us and helps us feel good is a really important thing. But permission to be feminine. And so a lot of the work I also teach is the difference between the masculine and the feminine, and they're both within men and women. So we both have masculine and feminine behaviors, but we've been taught the masculine to survive. So often, you know, you look at women who are moving up into roles in the corporate world, they've had to be put on that masculine kind of way of being to survive. And femininity and the feminine side of things, we've been taught that it's a waste of time, but we've got to have balance. And so feminine rests, she creates from a place of rest, she creates from a place of intuition, and we can only tune into our intuition when we're not stressed. And so the masculine is about action and doership and busyness. And when we have flow between both of those, when we take action from a place of rest and intuition, you know, those hits sometimes that you get, you're like, that's a really good idea. That doesn't come when we're stressed. It comes when we're walking in the woods, or we're resting, or we're just taking time out and learning to live life from that place. It will come when I'm taking care of myself. Then we can, you know, really create a different way of being.
To get involved as we try these things out ourselves. So we've asked Anna to give us a little challenge that we can all do.
I would really love you to practice the Ho'oponopono on your body. Every time you notice that you've been mean to your body and like looked in the mirror or gone, oh, another wrinkle, whatever, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. So if you do it every day for a week, at least 5 times, but hopefully catch yourself as much as you're being horrible and see what that does.
Give it a try, won't you please give it a try? Yes, you should give it a try, won't you?
Thank you so much to Anna. And if you want to find out more about her work, then head to www.annaandersoninc.com. And her book From the Inside Out is available from all good bookshops.
Oh my God, you're so good at that.
My stomach was rumbling so loudly when I read that out. Apologies, listener, if you heard that. This girl needs some lunch.
If I was proofing the audiobook, as I do, as sometimes as one of my sidelines, I would have had to have marked that up on the spreadsheet and put underneath stomach rumbles between this minute and this minute.
Please redo.
Yes.
You slackers.
Go and have some lunch and redo that line.
Come back again and just try a little bit harder.
I didn't hear it, so you're all okay.
Okay, that's fine.
So, Kate, what did you think of that?
That was a really interesting interview, and it covered a lot of things, didn't it? So we were talking about dieting, but also there was a lot in there about just, and it's all wrapped up, isn't it? But about just being kind to yourself and loving yourself. Yeah. And the try out section, the Hawaiian prayer, putting your hand on your chest.
Yes. How did you go with that? I loved it when we all did it together with her. During the interview. So have you been doing it?
It felt really emotional. I have been doing it. And, you know, sporadically, just when the moment happens and it pops into my brain that, you know what, actually, Kate, just give yourself a break.
Yeah.
And it feels really lovely. And it does feel like it's that weird sensation of kind of always talking to yourself as if you're two separate people. Do you know what I mean? Like this sort of out-of-body experience, looking on at yourself with a bit more kindness and forgiveness. I'm not going to lie, I forgot the words half the time and sort of include... It's like a cocktail of the words, I forgive you, I love you, you're wonderful, you're amazing, and just generally put them into any kind of mix that I could in the moment and said it to myself. But it felt nice. And I would recommend anyone to give it a go because... it does. It just reminds yourself that it's okay. Just don't be so hard on yourself.
Yes.
You're doing good.
Yeah. I mean, that is the kind of cocktail that we need to down every day of the week. It would just make us all feel much better if we replace that negative self-talk with that self-love instead. Did you feel good after doing it?
I did, yeah. I felt nice.
Yeah.
I felt felt loving towards myself.
Nice.
Which is nice.
Yeah. How unusual is that?
Well, yeah, it's not something that you sort of go around feeling acutely all the time, is it? To have those little moments of reminding yourself that, you're all right. You are okay, That's nice.
Yeah.
Definitely. How about you?
Well, I didn't do my homework, miss.
You're a very naughty girl. See me after class.
What? Well, as I said at the beginning, I've read the book and I've gone straight back to the beginning, and I've been starting to reread the book. And I just, reading it every night before bed, especially things like, a little section, you can have everything you want. You just need to stop putting it off and begin and start living it right now. Remember, you are one of a kind. There is nobody else in this world like you. There never has been. This fact alone makes you a miracle. You are full of potential and possibility. I mean, just reading stuff like that before bed is such a good way to end your day. And I do feel that when you're reading that stuff, it does go in. And even though I haven't been doing the Hawaiian prayer itself, I have become more aware of when I'm just being really freaking awful to myself and when my little brain is going off.
Yes.
And telling me I can't do things or telling me I look rubbish or et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
So it's really good to just be more aware of that.
Definitely.
And to put that little pause in place, put that little space in place. Because I have been, like I said to Anna, I've been dieting basically since I was 15. And that is because my mum was dieting.
Right.
And I saw it as something I needed to do, whereas I really, really didn't. And even though my mum used to say to me, you don't have a fat stomach, I'll be like, oh, look at my stomach. Yeah. That's just where my bloody intestines are, That's the shape it's supposed to be.
Like.
Yeah. But I didn't know that at that age. I remember doing it was always the crash dieting, just eating a cereal bar for breakfast and lunch, and I tried everything, and the cabbage diet and this and that. Right up until recently doing Slimming World, I have on and off been dieting for my whole life, and just the thought, and have always put the weight all back on every single time. And because I have fucked up my metabolism from crash dieting for years and years when I didn't have to, my weight has been very up and down. So I'm really, really ready for something very different. And she just talks in her book about, through all this, getting to ending up with a really healthy body. Yes, so I'm really wanting to embrace everything she's saying. Yeah. And to just, like she's saying, be disciplined in just growing your self-worth and your self-love. So I'm going to be more mindful about how I treat my body.
Yeah, and how you talk to yourself and about yourself. Yeah.
And what I put in it and making it as healthy as it can be.
Yeah. And let's talk a little bit, because you talked about diet brands and diet, what's the word I'm looking for? Dieting companies that are basically businesses, profit-driven businesses that profit out of sort of coming up with these bespoke diet plans and getting people to sign up to them and pay for them. And I came across an interview on the Guardian podcasts with Jamil, how do you say her name?
Jamila Jamil.
Where's she known from? She did some of the sort of the pop culture Channel 4 programmes, and
she's become massive on social media, hasn't she?
Yeah.
And she was in that show, The Good Place, with Kirsten Bell.
Yeah. So she's been interviewed on the Garden podcast about her experience of being approached by diet companies to be a brand ambassador. And I just thought, for anyone who sees those before and after pictures of celebrities in Hello magazine, which we all do, and we all look at them and think, well, you know what, they look amazing. And if they've done this diet, then maybe it works. I think this is useful for people to hear.
Start getting offers from diet companies who are reaching out to me on social media saying, we will pay you a shit ton of money, like 5 figures, 6 figures, to promote our weight loss product, and we will provide you privately with a personal trainer and we will set up a photo shoot in which you are wearing
my
a bikini
days.
that's too small for you. Like, this is all,
Right.
it was shamelessly and explicitly said, like, very, like, as if, like, it's very normal, like, this is the system, this is what we do, where we put you in clothes or a bikini that's too small, and we want you to be eating some sort of junk food. Then they would, like, eventually show my progress later, you know, like, all dressed up, hair done, ready for the photo, in flattering clothes that fit me well. So once I knew, something like triggered me. I was about 26 years old, and I was like, oh my God, as a child, I used to see these photographs all the time, and I believed this was real. This industry is even darker than I could have ever imagined, and I have been part of, and I have been perpetuating a scam.
Yeah, bloody hell. Yeah.
That's thought-provoking, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
she's been very vocal about calling out
has.
those companies, actually, on social media.
she has. And I think it's good that people are beginning to talk out. And also, you know, you see in shops the kind of the Weight Watchers cereal snack bars. They may be low calories, but they're not healthy.
No,
you know,
none
they're
of it's healthy.
so processed.
Yeah, yeah.
But you feel, because it's branded by a particular diet company, that maybe this is a healthy snack to have.
Well, you buy it because it's got the number of sins on it or the number of points on it, and you know you can just add that into your schedule, and you're ticking some boxes.
Yeah.
And yeah, but it's all shit, man.
Yeah.
And I really felt that when I was going to Slimming World. I mean, other diet companies are available to trash. And I just really surrounded by all these other women who were obviously still struggling with their weight.
Yeah.
And it's like, guys, this is not working for any of us.
No.
And we need to be looking at what's really going on. And so it's really good to just look at those reasons why we are turning to food as a comfort, or and that's exactly what she said. You know, it's all about numbing pain. So we've got to look at what's going on for us, get the help in those areas.
And it's so important at this time of year as well. And, you know, come January, there's going to be all of that new year, new you stuff going on in the media, which is just such rubbish.
Yeah. And if you want New Year, New You, then we need to do the things that she's suggesting, which is amazing how often it all comes back to this, Kate, on our podcast. It's meditation, it's gratitudes, it's pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and being consistent about it. But it is really funny how these things do slowly shift. And like I found myself talking to my best mate, Kat, and she was showing me some images of her like in this great new outfit, but she was then going, oh, but my belly doesn't look good, kind of thing. And I was like, your belly's amazing. Your belly's given you 2 kids.
Yeah.
You need to love your body. And that whole thing about how would you talk to your body if you were talking to a friend that you love?
Totally.
You would be so much kinder.
Exactly.
That's the core of this.
And do you know what my daughter said to me the other day? And this made me think what you were saying about when you were 14, saying you didn't like your tummy. My daughter, who's 7, said to me the other day, Mummy, is my tummy fat? And I mean, she's 7.
No.
You know, she's not. She's just like a little 7-year-old. But I was like, no, that's what tummies look like. Tummies are rounded because it's got your, like you said, your intestine and your stomach in it. Like that's what a tummy's supposed to look like. And it's trying to, you know, it's accepting our bodies for looking like human bodies and not putting unrealistic expectations on them. Yeah.
So would you do it again, Kate? Would you continue with the Hawaiian prayer? Would you ever deign to find out the actual words and continue doing it?
Definitely, because already it's been a while since we actually did our interview with Anna. And so over that period of time, it's become a bit of a habit, something that does pop into my mind to think to do when I'm feeling like I'm being a bit negative towards myself. So, I will. I think it's in there now.
Nice.
What would you read the book again for a 3rd time or 4th time?
Well, no, I'm just starting my 2nd time.
Your
of reading
2nd time.
It, so I am going to read it. And actually, I might even do some of the exercises in there because I know then I will actually get more out of it.
Yes.
And I mean, I've obviously not cured overnight from this episode, but I do really feel that it's setting in some really important new foundations. I want a change. I want to stop holding myself back, do all the things, feel healthier, and, you know, go on a bloody date.
Thank you for listening to Write Up My Podcast. And as always, we love to hear from you. So email us at writeupmypodcast@gmail.com, or you can find us on Instagram and Twitter using the handle @WriteUpMy.
Please subscribe and follow wherever you listen. If you listen on Apple, we would absolutely love it if for Christmas you could leave us a review and rate us with 5 stars, please. Oh, and please share with your friends, maybe as a Christmas gift to them.
Merry Christmas!
Because I'm sure they will love this too.
And head on down to our Patreon site where you can join the very festive Rump Club.
Yay!
And for as little as the price of a cup of coffee a month, you can enjoy extra content and all sorts of wiffle waffle from Gwen and I. And a special shout out always goes to our new members. So head on down to patreon.com/writeupmypodcast. And as always, a big old thank you to our team.
That is Andy G on the music. We love you, Andy. You make us laugh.
Yes.
And Erica Francis George, who we also love, who creates all our beautiful artwork.
We're taking a little festive break and we'll be back in the second week of January with our next episode where we'll be talking all about men's mental health. And in the meantime, keep trying things
To make you feel good. And have a very, very Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas!
Bye.
Tell me, did you like the podcast, Brian?
No!
Oh.
If, unlike Brian, you thought our podcast was really great, then don't hold back. Like, subscribe, and tell your mate. But if, like Brian, you thought our podcast wasn't fun, then just keep quiet. Don't feel the need to tell anyone. We'd love to hear from you if you've got some thoughts to share. Such rich and lovely views that all should be aware of. But I hope you liked our podcast and you thought it was really great. And if you did, like, subscribe, and tell your mate. 'Cause we don't need grumpy pants bringing everybody down. No, we don't need negative Nellies making people frown. No. So I hope you liked our podcast and you thought it was really great. And if you did, like, subscribe, and tell your mate.